After Biden's speech, where he more or less declared Republicans as enemies of the state, there has been a change in how people have been reacting to Biden. They've seemingly been trying to distance themselves from him, and especially considering the midterm elections are coming up on the Tuesday, the 8th of November, this could spell something quite interesting, maybe a change in tune where the media are not quite as friendly to the Biden administration. And if you want to know the content of the speech, Carl covered this in a segment on Monday titled Dr. Joe and Mr. Biden. So if you want to know what he actually said, you can go there, but I'm going to be talking about the fallout of this speech. So, first and foremost, one of the prominent things that happened is that many TV networks refused to air his address, starting with three, and this is reporting now. Lots of newspapers reported on the fact that they didn't air this, and they're trying to draw attention to it, which I thought was very interesting, which the three Washington newspapers did, for example. So the Washington Post has an article titled, "As Biden Warned About Democracy's Collapse, TV Networks Aired Reruns." Then we have the Washington Examiner. Networks refused to air Biden's primetime address live because it was too political. And
that's an interesting reason.
And the Washington Times reports broadcast nets. Oh, sorry, you moved along a bit. Broadcast nets snubbed Biden's speech for reruns, game shows. Execs thought speech was too political. And then if we go to this Daily Mail article, it explains why they've come to this decision. So networks refused to run Biden's primetime speech, demonising MAGA Republicans because it was deemed too political this close to midterms and because it attacked Trump. So that's very interesting because, of course, they have standards that they have to adhere to when it comes to election times. They can't report on stuff that's too partisan. But we know that normally they wouldn't really care about that, would they?
No, of course not. I think what's happened is Joe Biden, because I'd seen clips from a few of the speeches that he'd been doing before this big one, and realistically, everything that he was saying in this speech was nothing that he hadn't been saying in all of these other speeches he'd been making recently. So I think mainly they're just trying to avoid it because of the optics of it. It's one thing for him to declare all people on the other side enemies of the people when he's just in some hall speaking to a small group of people. But when he's standing against this evil blood-red backdrop, it suddenly puts it in a little bit more context for people.
Yeah, people realise that, okay, maybe this isn't a good thing that we split our country in two and start a civil war, another one.
Or at least seems to be heading that way.
Yes.
And I certainly hope not. Honestly, I think a national divorce probably would be best for America, and I think there are ways to do it peacefully. The only problem is that if you have the left in charge of the country, they're not going to let it happen peacefully.
Well, that's exactly my thoughts.
They are imperialists to the end.
So the article carries on saying, CBS, NBC, ABC and Fox News declined to air Joe Biden's speech attacking MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump because it was too political. In his divisive speech, Biden called out Trump by name, slamming the former president and calling him and his supporters a threat to democracy. Given its attacks on Trump and coming 2 months before the midterm elections, the networks refused to buy the White House's pitch for the speech. NBC News was told it would not be political or about a political party, but instead opted to air reruns of Law & Order, which I think is a subtle message of just like, yes, we're not going to air your speech, we want Law & Order.
Yeah, and also it's far more entertaining and more people will tune in.
That's true.
I mean, Joe Biden's speeches are all interchangeable at this point. They're kind of like Mad Libs, where you know the general structure, but you don't know where exactly he's going to be messing up and fumbling over his words. So people just, I don't know, for the most part, other than the fact this one looks overtly evil, don't really pay much attention.
However, CNN did air it, and they aired it in a very different form to everyone else. So here's the New York Post reporting. CNN questioned after altering blood-red background of Biden's speech. And it reads, CNN is facing questions from critics after the network was busted altering the lighting for President Biden's first day address, softening the blood-red hues to calmer shades of pink. If you scroll down in this, John, you should be able to see it does look pink now, doesn't it?
He was just celebrating Pride Month a little late.
The funny thing is that you can't see it so much in this screenshot, but in the actual footage they make him look really yellow and sick by altering the colours.
They show him in his true form then, by accident.
Yeah, it's like I can't say it, the they live glasses where you can see through. The president came in for withering mockery online for the harsh black and red backdrop, with many comparing the optics to Star Wars and V for Vendetta, while networks like CNN, MSNBC, CBS and C-SPAN carrying the speech all originally appeared consistent. CNN noticeably altered the colour of the background from the red to pink in real time. And this is a quote here. CNN appeared to have tweaked the video of Biden's speech from demonic red to Pepto-Bismol pink. Very helpful, as we need a lot of Pepto-Bismol to get through this, said former Arkansas Governor Mick Huckabee.
That's pretty good.
Find it funny that he's making direct references to Pepto-Bismol. I'm not sponsored, but shout out to them. They've helped me out in many a hangover.
Well, I find it amusing that from what they're saying there, they did it in real time as well. So if you're watching it, you can see the colours slowly shift.
Descend to pink, yeah. I don't know why they bother. They've done this before as well, haven't they? Where they've altered colours for stuff.
Well, what was the name of that guy who the truck of peace, one of the trucks of peace for Black Lives Matter that ran over a load of people that CNN took the mugshot of the guy and made him look remarkably white for a black guy.
Yeah, it's pretty insidious, isn't it? So they haven't learnt their lesson, apparently, and yet they still had the nerve to criticise Fox for not broadcasting it. So if we move on to the CNN article, it's titled, Fox airs infotainment instead of Biden's speech on voting rights. So not only are they not
Are they going to
satisfied...
have an article for all the other networks that did that, or just Fox?
It's their competitor, isn't it? So they're trying to score cheap points.
Oh, and by Brian Stelter as well. Oh wait, this is from last year.
Oh wait,
Josh, you got an article from July last year.
Never mind.
Sorry. I was going to say I was surprised to see Brian Stelter still there, seeing as he just got fired. Apologies.
That was my mistake.
Josh revealed as fraud.
Hey, at least we spotted it.
Yes.
But anyway, there is also the fact that Biden, in his Labor Day speech here, had hardly anyone turn up. So the Daily Mail reports, great show, Joe. Pitiful small crowd of union workers rock up to support President Biden's Labor Day speech in Pennsylvania as his crucial midterm election campaign ramps up. So the article reads, a minuscule crowd showed up for one of President Joe Biden's Labor Day rallies in Pennsylvania on Monday. The crowd, which could be described as being in the dozens, gathered outside of the United Steelworks of America local union in 2227 Hall in West Mifflin, a town southeast of Pittsburgh. The event was open to members of the union. While some professional photos from the event concealed just how sparse the crowd was, others showed the paltry numbers of people who showed up to hear the president's words. So if we have a look at one of the pictures that shows the actual size of the crowd, there it is. That's everyone that wanted to hear what the President of the United States has to say.
Most popular president in history.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right, okay.
What's that, about 24 people, maybe?
No, I'd say let's be generous and be a bit more accurate. It's probably 40 to 50 people, maybe a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more. Obviously, there's a tent as well, so there might be more people in the tent.
He's probably got more of his own staff.
That's also true. I might just be mixing the staff members in there as well.
Mm-hmm. So yes, CBS News reported on this event happening, and they don't mention at all the size of the crowd, which you think would be a pretty important aspect of their journalism. If it's the run-up to an election, you're just like, well, he didn't draw a very big crowd. I mean, that's the President of the United States, and he's got a handful of people there. But yes, of course, most popular. It's also worth pointing out that even Democratic Senate candidates aren't that interested in hearing him speak. So here's another article from the Daily Mail. Democratic Senate candidate Mandela Barnes claims he skipped Biden's Wisconsin speech because he was participating in other events as members of the president's own party keep a distance. So yes, even Democrats don't want to hear him speak.
Not surprised. Not surprised. I think at this point they've all just recognised that he is a net negative, optically speaking. Yeah,
yes,
he's a great guy to have in there if you don't want the president to actually do anything of his own volition, if you want to have complete control over the president. Yes, he's fantastic to have in there because the man, his brain is made of jelly and has no idea where he is or what he's doing at any time, but that also can come back to kick you in the rear when he goes out in public and makes speeches.
So some media pundits decided to come to his rescue, but didn't really help matters at all. So there are lots of articles that are trying to help him, but they're also kind of not. Like, there's this one. Joe
The
Biden.
Tony Soprano effect.
Yeah, Joe Biden is
Okay.
winning. The Tony Soprano effect makes that hard to see. He's winning, but we just can't see it. So this is
He's
hilarious.
winning
I couldn't.
so hard you just can't tell.
It made me laugh a lot.
Is this like when Charlie Sheen was winning with his HIV diagnosis?
Something like that. So the article reads, lately, in a fit of late summer restlessness, I've been rewatching The Sopranos. As a study in family dysfunction and unhealthy appetites, the storied HBO series holds up, but it's also a fascinating window in how easily humans are seduced by the destructive energies of a leading man. This is, by the way, praising Joe Biden. For all his efforts at therapy, Tony Soprano remains an unrepentant mob boss at the heart. Unloved by his mother and trained to kill by his father, he winds up corrupting or destroying everyone in his orbit. I mean, Hunter and all of his kids. I mean, just saying.
I don't see where the positives are coming in just yet, but okay.
What makes the show so disturbing is the way viewers become complicit in Tony's exploits because he's the protagonist. We find ourselves taking vicarious pleasure in his murders, his affairs, his criminal impunity. We cheer, at least inwardly, when he lashes out.
Okay, I'm
Stop me
waiting for the point.
Yeah. Stop me if any of this sounds depressingly familiar, and I'm correcting that because they've got a typo in there. Because when I step back and look at the larger relationship between the Fourth Estate and our political landscape, what I see over and over is the Tony Soprano effect. Our free press has made a mob boss of the nation's leading man, and in so doing has obscured the remarkable job being done by the actual president.
Okay, so I think I see what they're doing. I think they're trying to say that Donald Trump is the nation's leading man, being the mob boss, and we're ignoring Joe Biden's good work that he's doing. That's me trying to understand where this is going, because so far this is not an advertisement for Joe Biden.
But it all fits, doesn't it? I mean, if
It
the shoe
does.
fits...
It does.
Especially the part about the people in his orbit being destroyed. I mean, all of his kids are drug-addicted sex addicts, and I don't know about his grandkids so much, but it's not looking good for Joe, is it?
No.
So, The Atlantic as well, which we know is definitely a cheerleader of Joe Biden's. Biden's student debt rescue plan is a legal mess. And it goes on to say, the Biden administration's recently announced plan to reduce student debt for borrowers who earn less than $125,000 is popular according to recent polls. Unfortunately, the plan has a major legal flaw. The administration's arguments for its executive power to make such a broad effort under federal law will likely lose, and should lose, in the courts. The good news for President Joe and for borrowers is that the administration has time to change those arguments. That's not exactly high praise, is it? That, okay, we agree with this thing that you're doing, but your arguments are going to lose, and at least you can make some new ones. That's like their reconciliation.
All of these sound like the most duplicitous, backhanded compliments imaginable. This is being gaslit by an abusive spouse. Yes, I keep hitting you, but it's for your own good. You need to understand, once your behaviour changes, then I just won't have to hit you anymore.
But even their praise now is kind of an insult at the same time. So here we have Huffington Post, obviously left-wing outlet again. Dark Brandon strikes again. Joe hits heckler with scathing one-liner.
Oh, they're still trying to make Dark Brandon work, aren't they? So cringe.
But yeah, saying Dark Brandon isn't exactly the optics you want, is it? But yes, the article I'm going to read quickly, just a small extract from it. President Joe showed his feisty side on Monday when a heckler interrupted his speech in Milwaukee. It's not clear what the heckler was yelling about, but Biden responded with, "God love you," and as security moved towards the heckler, Biden urged them to back off. Let him go, Biden said. Look, everybody's entitled to be an idiot, which presumably was why he was speaking in Milwaukee at the time. So,
I mean, honestly, that's shockingly liberal to hear from the
yeah.
Democrats at this point.
So the Washington Post, of course, another cheerleader for Joe Biden, did an article, "Is there such a thing as a Joe Biden superfan?" And you think, well, okay, they're really stretching it here to try and get someone to make him sound good. So it reads, this is from the 30th of August, by the way, so this is before Biden's speech. Andrew Schaefer once thought of himself as a Joe Biden superfan. He bought aviator sunglasses just like Joe's, collected Biden action figures and wore Biden hoodies, knew the Arcana,
I think.
Sorry,
I don't know what that means in context.
Of Biden's personal and political life, and set out to write a noir novel starring a character named Joe Biden. He thought of Joe Biden as the cool uncle he might offer a spin in his Corvette or treat for ice cream.
Andrew Schaefer glows and also wants to know how you were able to afford that new car you bought the other week.
I think cool uncle is a very charitable interpretation of creepy uncle, but there we go. But it carries on. Then Biden became president and Schaefer lost his zeal for Joe. What had made Biden so compelling? Falling painfully short of achieving his ultimate political goal, vanished once he made it to the White House. All of a sudden, he went from being the fun uncle to dad, Schaefer, 43, said recently from his Louisville KY home. Everyone always prefers the fun uncle. He isn't even sure if he would support Biden for re-election.
I don't think Biden was the fun uncle. No. He was definitely the creepy uncle.
Even this weirdo, who was a super fan, has gone off.
Who is also a sleeper agent by the sounds of it.
There's also the fact that the term, I'm quoting here, pedo Hitler, keeps on trending on Twitter, and it's always to do with Joe Biden. So this comes from Marjorie Taylor Greene, if we look at this Business Insider article, who compared Joe Biden to the bad man of the mid-century Germans, sparking criticism from an Israeli diplomat who basically said that
Joe Biden's paying my bills, leave him alone.
That's what they were saying in the subtext, but they actually said, as we face a rise in anti-Semitic incidents, the US and around the world, rhetoric like this only fuels the persistent threat of hatred, extremism and violence, which is obviously nonsense. So yes, that's where the comparison comes from. But yes, there are people pointing out the fact that Twitter are trying to engineer interest in other directions. So let's have a look at this post here. What they want you to talk about versus what you're talking about. And this is from the Reason magazine Mises Caucus. So promoted by Disney is Disney's Pinocchio, but what's really trending is pedo Hitler Biden.
Also, just nice to see that the Reason magazine has a Mises Caucus as well now.
So yes, the reason that he has this pedo part, obviously we've explained the Hitler part, is his weird relationship with his children and grandchildren. So here we have another Daily Mail article. If that's not child molestation, it is definitely close. Tucker Carlson blasts Biden over daughter Ashley's diary admission that taking showers with him as a girl may have contributed to her sex addiction after DailyMail.com reveals the extract.
I forgot just how far this rabbit hole goes there. So
it's pretty horrific.
Not only was he taking showers with her, but something happened as part of those showers that ended up leading her to a pretty typical trauma response from some women.
From
sadly.
what I've read of the diary, it seems like it wasn't like a young child where you think, okay,
it's like a dad taking a bath with the toddler or something.
Yeah, she was like a teenager, which is really weird. I mean,
yeah, that's very strange.
It's pretty horrifying. And then we go to things like this. The New York Post here. Joe Biden kisses granddaughter on lips during Iowa rally. This is from 2020, so this is quite some time ago.
That picture is horribly awkward because his eyes are closed and hers are open with a bit of shock in them as well. Like, Granddad, no. Not in public.
So this has led to the circulation of this meme on Twitter with lots of people sharing it, which is... If you scroll down a little bit, John, you can see the caption, Adolf Sniffler.
Wait, is that from David Wolf?
Yes, it is.
Oh my goodness.
So that's obviously playing on the fact that he's known for sniffing children all the time. And he's been caught many times sniffing children.
And he has lots of weird nostalgic stories about when he was a lifeguard and all the kids would pull his hairy leg. Very strange. To have such fond memories. But
to have a look at the impact that his weirdness has had on his children, we only need to look at our coverage of Hunter Biden. So me and Carl have covered Hunter Biden in 2 pretty explicit extracts from all of his laptop leaks and all that stuff. I've been traumatised for life by seeing his...
I still have not watched these because I don't want to be traumatised.
Seeing his 9-inch phallus so many times, I am forever scarred. Which he also boasted about, and the New York Post talked about.
Oh my goodness.
But yes, if you want to learn about how horrific Hunter is, you've got both this and also we talk about his background a bit more in an older video titled The Life and Times of Hunter Biden. So... check those out if you want to bleach your eyes later. So, it's worth pointing out that Joe Biden is not polling very well. So he's pretty much more disapproved of than he is approved of by a relatively significant amount, 53 to 41.1%.
I mean, it's been on a consistent downward trend with his approval ratings.
So obviously this is having some sort of impact, and his staff are obviously aware of this, and they've went into damage control a little bit. So here we have an article by The Guardian titled "Biden's Chief of Staff says President is comparable to historic predecessors," in that he has the honesty of Richard Nixon, the decency of Bill Clinton, the federal spending of Roosevelt, and the incompetence of James Buchanan, who coincidentally led to several states leaving the Union. I wonder if there are any comparisons there. But no, what they're really trying to say is, and I'm quoting directly from the article here, in a bullish interview, the White House Chief of Staff, Ron Klain, compared Joe Biden's achievements in his first 2 years in office to historic successes under Franklin Delano Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy, and Lyndon B. Johnson. So what's that? You've got someone who spent lots of money, someone who started the Vietnam War, and someone who was killed before they can make mistakes. I mean, at least
That's
JFK
quite the legacy.
went after the CIA. I mean, if
And then
only
ended
Joe
up
did
dead, completely not
that,
related.
just a coincidence,
Yeah.
of course.
FDR also should be considered one of the greatest villains of American history,
Absolutely.
if we were looking at history rightfully.
So what is Biden doing to help his situation? Well, staying at home, apparently. So here's an article from the Daily Mail again. Joe Biden has now been in Delaware for 150 days. The president has spent more time at his home away from the White House than Trump, Obama, and Bush. So he's not really doing very much to help himself. So hopefully...
He's not doing very much at all.
No. Well, I mean, that's the
Other than
perfect
just
thing for a president to do. Really.
Shouting belligerently at people.
Like a senile old man, who'd have thought? But hopefully all of this kind of contempt for Biden carries over into the midterms, and then Congress can be packed full of Republicans, and then he can do absolutely nothing with his office. Here's hoping.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as this article from Harry on how he became pro-life, and an audio track for Silver and Gold tier members, of course, as well. If you want to find out what else Harry's putting out, you can follow him on Getter at Harry Lotus Eater on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.